exactly 1 minute. You can introduce yourself in the chat box. It's 3 p.m. now, we start. Hello and welcome to the July edition of the WIMBIZ e-Roundtable. Our topic today is income, investment, and wealth strategies for the modern woman. The time is currently 3 p.m. and approximately 2 hours. We're delighted that you're joining us to spend this beautiful Thursday afternoon with us. And I would like you to take the next 30 seconds to invite your friends and colleagues to join us in this very insightful and much needed conversation about all things money. So invite your colleagues for the next 30 seconds and let them participate with us in this beautiful session we're going to have. My name is Motunrayo Ade-Famoti. I am the CEO of Moneystewards, an investment firm focusing on global investments. I'm a trained UK and US attorney, and I'm most honored and excited to be the moderator today, discussing the all-important topic of income, investment, and wealth strategies. Women. So once again, everybody, you're welcome. I'd like to now introduce WIMBIZ. WIMBIZ, Women in Management, Business and Public Service, is a not-for-profit organization that has, over the last 19 years, implemented programs that inspire, empower, and advocate for greater representation of women in leadership positions in both the public and private sector. WIMBIZ is the first Nigerian NGO rated by the NGO Advisor and ranked as number 428 worldwide. It is also the only African and Nigerian partner and representative of the International Women's Entrepreneurship Challenge IWEC Foundation. WIMBIZ is also a volunteer-based organization funded largely by donations and contributions by members and partners, and is a supporter for the Code of Ethics and Conduct for NGOs. For more information about WIMBIZ, please visit www.wimbiz.org. Also, I'd like to introduce you to the Inspire Me Coffee Table Book Volume 1 and 2 that features accomplished women in diverse careers, businesses, and professions from different backgrounds who are making their mark in the Nigerian management, business, and public sectors. The books go for a bonus deal at the moment, Volume 1 and 2 for only 20,000 Naira. To purchase, do kindly contact the number on your screen. I read it quickly, +234 803 494 6249. We won't be here without our sponsors, so we'd like to thank them specially for sponsoring this e-Roundtable. Our sponsors are Carbon Tech Limited. It's a fintech company that provides loan savings and other investment products. And Leadway Pension, a PFA specializing in retirement products. Thank you very much, our sponsors. At the end of this webinar, a poll will be put out for a quick evaluation. Thereafter, an evaluation link will be sent to you all in a follow-up email. Do please endeavor to complete it. We want to hear your opinion about this webinar. We also kindly invite our dear participants who are not WIMBIZ associates to become one today. And to those of us that are currently WIMBIZ associates and you are yet to renew your membership, kindly do so. For more inquiries, please contact via email membership@wimbiz.org. Please remember to tweet and tag us on the social media handle using the hashtags #WIMBIZ e-Roundtable and #WIMBIZ-webinar. On LinkedIn, where we are Women in Management, Business and Public Service, and on Twitter, we're @WIMBIZ. So I'd like to introduce our panelists, and they will of course tell us more about what they do in their opening statements. First up is Arese Ugwu. Arese is the author and publisher of 2 best-selling books, The Smart Money Woman and The Smart Money Tribe. Both books have been spawned into television series. She's the founder of smartmoneyafrica.org, a financial education platform tailored to the African millennial. She holds a MSc in Economic Development from UCL London and BSc from Aston Business School in Birmingham. Thank you very much, Arese, for joining us today. I'd also like to introduce Bimpe. Bimpe is a founder and managing partner at W8 Advisory, a wealth advisory practice and multi-family office based in London, which is focused on African entrepreneurs and their families. She's a dually qualified lawyer with over 30 years experience. She's a certified trust and estate practitioner and an accredited family business advisor. We welcome both of you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Right now, we will be taking polls during this webinar, and you will have a chance to ask questions. We have left an entire hour for the Q&A session. Do ask your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box. So the first poll question should now appear on your screen. Okay, so the first poll question is, do you currently have only one source of income? Yes or no? Which one of these is important to you when considering investing? Making a profit, invest in my next generation, ability to withdraw funds at a short notice, is my investment safe, and having enough to invest in the first place? We'll take about a minute or two, and I'll read out the polls at the end. Okay. Do we have the results? Oh, wow. Okay. Do you currently have only one source of income? 61% says yes, and 39% say no. Okay. Which one of this is important to you when considering investing? 31% believe making a profit, 16% investment for the next generation. Interesting. Ability to withdraw funds at the short notice is 4%. Okay. And is my investment safe? That's 35%. Having enough to invest takes the percentage. Let me see that. Okay, that's 15%. Okay, fantastic. Well, I can assure you that you're in the right place, and we'll address all of this and more. Okay, I've heard many times that investing in women is a great way to invest in the whole community. Globally, working women put a significant portion of their earnings into families. Furthermore, women are also responsible for about 70 to 80% of all consumer spending, which means we're putting a lot of money back in the economy. With all of this economic power, you expect women to be in charge of their financial lives. Unfortunately, that's not really the case always. Research shows that women are much more likely than male counterparts to experience financial anxiety and feel stressed when discussing their finances. Women may not be taking full advantage of the investment opportunities at their disposal or potential to grow their assets. They're more likely to take a conservative approach. This may seem disappointing, but we can turn the tide through financial education, investment goal setting, and adequate planning. When I talk to women about their wealth strategies, I encourage them to think of it as a vehicle to realize their personal vision of success. Through intentional planning, you can garner financial freedom to pursue your dreams, bring stability to your life and the lives of the loved ones around you. Handle your inevitable obstacles life throws in your path and contribute to the causes that are close to your heart. I personally believe that the rapid rise in women's financial power is yet to be fully appreciated. Simply put, women, yes, we can. I look forward to engaging our speakers, Arese and Bimpe, and coming up with strategies that can help us build, grow, and sustain wealth. We would now like to invite our panelists to share their perspectives on how to invest, what to invest in, what to ensure your investment, how to ensure your investments are diverse and safe, and what to be engaged in at this time. Let me first invite Arese to comment on strategies and hidden opportunities focused on millennials and beginners. Arese, thank you. I think you need to unmute your button.
Hi, everyone. My name is Arese. I'm glad that everyone's here. It's very exciting. I love opportunities where I get to commune with women and talk about money, because my own smart money journey did not start from a place of perfection. So it's not like I knew everything. So I decided I wanted to start writing books about money. It came from my own personal struggles and the strategies that I had to employ to become more financially literate. So I've shared this in my books. So I had my first aha moment with money when I was 27 years old and my marriage fell apart and I had a 1-year-old child and I basically had to start my life again. And I had to pay 2 years rent upfront, buy new furniture, pay a service charge, and it was super expensive. And I began to think, wow, Arese, you work in financial services. You don't have the excuse of saying that you are a low-income earner. So how come you don't have enough for this big emergency? And I realized that I was saving to spend as opposed to saving to build, right? Because in Africa, they don't really teach us about how to keep and grow our money. The focus is always on earning. So we're not taught in any formal framework, how to manage our personal finances. So in terms of strategies that I think that young people should employ, it all starts with understanding that financial freedom is about growing your net worth, right? And your ability to grow your net worth. So your net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. And I always start with this because I feel like we haven't been taught. We haven't been taught. So the focus is on earning. So when we see money in our bank accounts, we allocate it to spending immediately, and we're not thinking about investing and saving and growing that money. The money in our bank accounts translates to how much we can afford to spend right now. And that shouldn't be the case. We need to get to a point where we're consistently building assets and finding a balance between living the lifestyle that we want to live, but also growing our assets. One of the things that I think that women should be thinking about now, especially if you're a young person, is how to build your investment portfolio and basically like come up with your own personal investment strategy for asset allocation. And to do this, you need to know what your financial goals are. You need to know what you need to understand the different asset classes and the risks involved with them. So for example, if you are investing because you want to be able to pay your rent next year, right? You can't put it in the stock market because it's volatile in nature. Stocks are volatile in nature and they'll go up, they'll go down, and you can lose part of your capital in the meantime. However, in the long run, they give you the best return for your money compared to other asset classes, but it's also risky, right? So understanding what your own investment strategy is so that you're not pulled in different directions is very key. Understanding the different asset classes and what the risks allocated to them are so that you're not pulled into things like MMM and Ponzi schemes. I love real estate as well. I'm sure Motunrayo would, agree that this is another asset class that, more women should take advantage of. Looking for opportunities where you can buy low and sell high. Looking for opportunities where other people are running away from. So now everybody thinks, especially young people, the young people that I speak to, talk about when they hear real estate, they think, oh my God, but I don't have enough money to invest in a property in Ikoyi or Banana. But we don't always have to start from that place. We can start by thinking about where the growth areas are in, say, Lagos or wherever it is that you live, the places that that are coming up, and that you can benefit from capital appreciation over a period of time. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there first.
Right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Arese. You've already talked a lot, and we're going to unpack. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, fantastic. So yes, we would like to take your own opening statement as well. Thank you.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I have to say, first of all, that my entry into this space has come about a bit later in life. I'm not a finance expert. I didn't train in financial services. I'm a lawyer, but I guess I've wandered into the wealth management space, and therefore it's enabled me to, I would say, follow a passion that I've always had around the topic of investing and creating and preserving wealth. Now, on the background of that, what I'd like to start with before jumping straight into investing is let's just stop and think about our finances. I think at the moment, during lockdown, most of us have been working from home, or working less, businesses are shut down. It's given us, I think, a couple of, I would say, ideas. First of all, I think many people are probably anxious about the future, even their financial future, because if you run a business that's been impacted by the lockdown, it means that your ability to generate income and revenue is restricted. But also, even if you're not an entrepreneur and you're working for someone, you're either being faced with taking a pay cut. You may, as in the UK, even be on furlough, which means your job has been frozen and you're taking a much reduced salary. All of that, I think, would lead me to start off from, before you start investing, I think it's time to do what I call a financial detox. I would really, I think, urge everyone, and I think most people are probably doing this, to step back and assess your current cash situation. Investing obviously is something, and saving is something I think we're all going to talk about a lot today. But I think before we even start that, you want to actually review your financial, look at your bank statement, look at what your current position is. I mean, in the UK, apparently, some statistics came out recently that literally over 11 million households in this country have less than £100 savings, which means when a pandemic, when a crisis happens, how many of us have any kind of buffer? How many of us have any rainy day money set aside? And that's, if we don't have, we need to start thinking about that, because this is a crisis that we don't even know how long it's going to go on for. Rainy days usually means, you know, maybe an accident or a funeral, something you weren't expecting, but this is much more than that. So what I would want to start with is, let's do a financial detox. Let's stop. Let's look at our cash situation. Let's look at our bank statements, go through line by line. Let's look at the spending pattern. And actually, let's really be honest about what we need and what we don't need, because it's only by doing that you're going to find the surplus that you need to invest. So having done all of that, I hope, you know, if you haven't done that, if you haven't done it and find out you don't have any savings, don't panic. You still have time. It's never too late to start saving, and there's never an amount that's too small. But I would really say, let's start looking at our finances, each of us, you know, there's no one size fits all. Now, when that's happened, when you've now looked at your finances, and this, I'm actually just sharing with you the rules of my own style, what I do myself, which is why it's easy to talk about it. Look at your finances on a monthly basis, look at trim the fat. Now, most of us aren't going out as much as we used to because of COVID. We're not eating out. We're probably not shopping, maybe shopping online, but there's a limit to what you can buy online because you want to try those shoes on and all of that. So there is now the opportunity to actually trim back what you're spending and actually decide that you want to invest. And before you start investing, you need a budget. And so that's why it's good to know what surplus income you have, whether it's, you know, I'm going to speak in pounds, I'm here, whether it's £100 a month, whether it's £500 a month.
Hello.
whether you can afford £500 a month, whether you can afford £100 a month to set aside, set up your budget, decide how much you're going to save. And that's the most important thing. And then the journey of saving and the journey of investing starts, having done all of that. And again, my strategy is to look at what are your reasons for saving, because we all have various reasons. We're in different age brackets, we're in different, I would say, geographical zones, we're in different career points. So some of us might be saving, to buy a car, to buy a first home. Some people might be saving for retirement. Some people might be saving because they have young children who they want to send to the UK or the US to school in the next 5 to 10 years. So you need to actually just look at your objective. What's your motivation for saving? What's your time horizon? And then what are the tools for saving? Because obviously it's your savings, the amount of money that you can put aside on a regular basis or a lump sum that you're going to start investing. And just as Arese mentioned, the different types of products out there, it's always good to diversify, and I'm sure we'll talk about diversification shortly. But yes, it's good to look at what are the types of things you can save your money in, whether it is stocks and shares, whether it is funds, whether it is property. But all of these things will match different time horizons. Property, for example, is a great way to put aside money and that will earn a passive income, especially if you buy in the right place, right time, whether it's in the UK, US, Nigeria. You find a place that will, at least have a good tenants, whether you're buying in the most highbrow area or an area where I would say the blue collar workers are going to be living, and therefore you have rental income. And hopefully that property will appreciate in value itself. So property is good, but one downside of property is you can't sell it easily if you need quick cash. Okay, so if you really need to, you need to pay 1 year's school fees up front or 2 years rent up front, you can't sell property. So that's why it's good to then look at other things in your portfolio, like maybe stocks and shares or funds that you can actually liquidate quickly. I'll stop there because I know there is a lot to unpack, but I just thought to start off with the basics of why we're saving and investing, and actually where will you find the money. It's going to be down to how much surplus you can trim off and what spending habits you can change to ensure that you can actually generate a surplus amount to save on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bimpe. You've talked a lot, and I'm going to unpack it bit by bit. This very interesting topic of money. Firstly, you can keep your questions start coming on the Q&A box. I have a few questions of my own, and once we're done, we'll take a whole set hour for Q&A. So there's plenty opportunity to ask all your questions. Arese, let me start with you. You mentioned that you came into, you were not particularly financially savvy, but due to personal struggles, and you share some personal, maybe your marriage breakdown and that kind of, and your child, that really helped you focus on being financially astute. My question is, what are some of the mental and cultural barriers that all African women, I know you do a lot of work in this in this space, what are some of the barriers? Because one thing I know about wealth is that you cannot build wealth without the right money mindset, without having the good money management skills. So what are some of the challenges that the typical African woman faces, and how can we help resolve those so that we can get people towards the upward trajectory of building wealth? You're on mute.
I keep forgetting to unmute myself. Hi, sorry. Okay, so what are the mental blocks that I think that older African women have when it comes to building wealth? I think it comes from how we're taught or socialized to think about money, right? So when you think about it, a young boy is told from a very early age that he's the provider and the protector, or he has to grow up to be the provider and the protector of his family, right? But a young woman is taught that she's the nurturer, she has to look after her family and all of that. And I feel like this subconsciously affects the way that we think about money as African women, because even when we start earning more money, we tend to do what spoke about earlier, which is saving to spend as opposed to saving to build. I personally believe that African women are really good savers. We're excellent savers. Our mothers taught us how to sacrifice, how to, set something aside, after you've paid your bills and everything. But I feel like what they didn't really focus on, especially when it comes to women, is building, right? So I'm from Benin, right? And there are a lot of matriarchs in Benin. So my grandmother, for example, she used to sell lace, she used to do a logistics business. She was very, savvy when it came to building her wealth and building her multiple streams of income in Benin, right? She was ready to do things to make money. But at the end of every month, there'll be family members. My mother is sick. Oh, my uncle died. Oh, please, can you help me pay my child's school fees? And I feel like when you think about it, African women have always known how to hustle. But like my grandmother, like myself, we save to spend. So at the end of the day, you become a revolving door for your money. You're looking after everybody, but you're not paying attention to your financial future. You're not building assets that protect you in the future. And then when you look at a lot of the women from that generation, there's a huge chunk of them that they've been doing business for years. They were known, they had brands, they were successful. But at the end of their lives, when they're supposed to be retiring, there are no assets to show for it, right? So there are no assets that give them enough passive income to look after them, even if they've worked really hard. So I think we really need to look at that. Men are more likely to take risks, take advantage of opportunities, go for it, because they have it in their mind like, I have a family to look after. I have kids, so many people are depending on me. So they're more likely to take more risks. I want to encourage African women to be more self-aware, to understand, to find that balance between, okay, I want to look nice, but it is also important that I systematically build my wealth by taking a proportion of my income every month before I even pay my bills towards building assets that can protect them in the future. Because like my grandmother, you get to a point where you can never work and hustle as hard as you once used to. And you have to ask yourself, when you get to that age, are you going to have enough to be financially independent? Or are you going to become a liability to your children? So I think we have different mindsets when it comes to building wealth. I think that the saving to spend thing is definitely a mindset limitation. I think that we take less risks. Women are more, even when they start investing, they're very skittish about risk, right? They're very, oh my God, I don't want to put my money in something that's going to wipe it out. But when you take a risk, you're betting on a future outcome, right? And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But if we don't take risks, we can't really, get the big payoffs that we're looking for. So it has to be, we have to focus on, balancing it out, having a diversified portfolio where you are invested in different asset classes. And so that when you've invested, let's say you have, fixed income, you have, a savings account, you start investing in stocks, then you can start saying, okay, I want to start taking more risks with my portfolio because I have this cushion to depend on. But it's important for it to be diversified.
Thank you so much, Arese. Just to unpack it one more time before I move on to Bimpe. Investment is daunting to a lot of people. They're saying they can't, you said something about save. But the truth of the matter is when it comes to investing, a lot of people are saying, look, I'm barely making ends meet. How do I begin to think of investing? I'm a young girl, I'm a young woman. I still have 50, 70 years ahead of me. I'll deal with all those eventualities later on. How do we convince them and, break down those walls to let them begin to think that, look, you can start saving little at a time. small by small. How do we really, what advice can we have for people like that, please? And this is for Arese. I will come back to Bimpe.
I get this question a lot. People are always like, well, I don't have enough, to save and invest. Like I can barely pay my bills and all of that. And that's fair. We're all in these boats, right? Nobody wants to set aside one amount, a chunk of their money. That's just reality, right? But, I also don't feel like showering sometimes, but I have to, right? With investing, it is so that tomorrow can be better than today, right? So if I make 100,000 naira, the way that I do it is I would put 20% of that money aside towards my financial future, right? And pretend that I earned 80,000 naira. Again, it's a mindset thing. And then you remind yourself that there are people who earn 80,000 naira and somehow they're able to pay their rent, send their children to school, live their lives, right? So what do people who earn 80,000 naira do with their money? Go and find out, right? Hello. No. Am I back on?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Hi. Oh, so it's not my internet. my my bad. I thought it was my internet. What was I trying to say? Okay, so I was saying that it is important for us to remember that investing, although it is not a magical thing, it has to be done systematically. But it's important for us to remember that in order not to become revolving doors for our money, we have to invest so that tomorrow will be better than today, right? So you have to systematically put the money aside and save towards investing. So most times nobody has all the money to buy real estate at once, or nobody has all the money to be able to take advantage of, the stock market, but you save towards it systematically. We don't have to wait till we've hit or we've blown to start investing. Otherwise, you will look back 10 years later and realize that you haven't done anything with your money. I think that it is important to think about when you were like in NYC or when you got your first job, and 5 years later or 10 years later, you haven't saved and invested, or you haven't saved and invested as much, but your salary has increased maybe 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, but you haven't been saving and investing, right? Because our consumption tends to rise to meet our income. We get the first job and it's like, now I have to look like a banker. So I have to upgrade my wardrobe. I need to buy a new car. I need to live on the island, right? And then when you get a promotion, you have to look the part and you buy, and we can keep going like that unless we make it a habit of keeping at least 10 to 20% of our income aside systematically every month towards building our financial future. Since Motunrayo is not here,
what's happened, Daniel?
Do you want to continue?
I can continue.
Yes, please.
Is that all right?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So I think just again on the same theme about sort of saving or investing. I think saving, really, when we look at money, I think, what do we want in life? Do we want to control money, or do we want to have money to control us? And that's the most important question. So if you look at money as a means to an end, your money, you shouldn't be working for your money. Your money should work for you. And if that is your, I would say, your rule, then Money is what you use to gain financial freedom. Money is what you use to gain financial security, to provide for yourself, for your children, to have, the little luxuries, the big luxuries, to retire well, to be retired in a way that you can. I'm, of the older generation. That's why I'm speaking retirement, and I'm sure the audience is of a very diverse age group. But in retirement, when retirement basically means a time when we stop working as much as we used to. And some people stop working entirely. Some people will stop working for a little bit, or go part-time, or just have some board positions. But you want to be able to have the same level of income to keep yourself in the same lifestyle. If you were traveling twice a year on holiday, and you were going to a spa once a month, and you were doing your nails and doing your hair, and buying yourself or your family nice Christmas presents when you were working. When you retire, you don't necessarily want to, to actually have to cut back, to scale back. You don't really also want a scenario where your children will start to have to pay your bills. I mean, I know that was the old style, but I think these days our children, we pray for our children to do better than us. I mean, most likely they might be living, thousands of miles away with their own headaches and their own family. And so literally, you really should be looking at retirement as a time when you can kick back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So that's what, when you think about saving, is really saying, how is this money I'm making now going to work for me, not the other way around. So when it comes to saving, if you're a younger person and you haven't started, or an older person and you haven't started, because I don't think it's age-related, start small. There's no amount that's too small, definitely, to put aside. Like I said earlier, this is a good time to look at your bank accounts and actually be very brutally honest to yourself and say, really, do I really need to buy a new handbag every month? Do I really need to, eat out 4 times a week? Do I need to buy the Ashwabi that everybody is buying every single time? Can I restrict that spend? Can I filter down what I'm spending on certain things? Can I be disciplined? And actually, can I share with my friends and family the reason why I'm not buying that Ashwabi this time, or the reason why I don't want to go out to eat dinner, or do certain things? And that's really you're being authentic. And actually, it's all for yourself. So really, you need to look at where you can cut back, where you can make some surplus happen, and there is surplus. There always is, because whatever, as long as we're working, of course, if we're unemployed and have financial difficulties, that's a different matter. But as long as we're working, we're earning income. Trust me, there's even 10 extra pounds or 1,000 extra naira that you could have hold back on spending. So start small and start putting that money away somehow. The other thing about saving and investing is educating yourself. I'm not from a financial services background, and I've sat with clients. With meetings with their private banks, looked at portfolios, and I think it's just because it's something I've always been interested in. I've seen clients female clients especially, who are CEOs, who are, medical doctors, lawyers, very well accomplished. But when the discussion around money starts and they're sitting next to their husband or sitting there by themselves, their eyes just glaze over, especially when they're sitting next to their husbands. They just think, husband is here, he's dealing with it, even though my money is in the pot together, because these days many couples are power couples and they both earn very well. But their eyes glaze over and they don't pay attention. And therein lies a problem. So to be honest, you need to educate yourself. You need to understand where your money is being invested. Whether it is 1,000 naira or 100 million naira, you need to understand that product, why it's being invested there. So whoever your financial services advisor is, or your bank, or whoever you're talking to, don't follow the herd. Don't be copycat. Don't say, because my friend bought mutual funds or Eurobonds, and these words are all, I would say, bandied around, and people just jump on the bandwagon without understanding whether there's a right fit. Even if you have the money to buy those Eurobonds, is it the right fit for you? Does it meet your risk appetite? Because when we talk about investing, 3 important things you should think about. First of all, the money you're putting away, the money you're investing, must be money that you don't need immediately. Because really and truly, to watch that money grow, you can't put your money into a portfolio or into a savings, into a bond or buy shares. And then a month later, you need money and you sell them. You wouldn't have seen any growth. So for money to grow, it's got to be kept in that particular investment long term. Same with the house or flat or whatever you invested in. So any money you're investing, rule 1, it must be money you don't need immediately. Rule 2, you must know why you're putting it in that particular product. Why is it property? Sometimes property is also because I live in the UK and I see many families who buy property here for 2 reasons. One, their children are coming to school here and they want a place where the kids are on half term, rather than renting a flat or renting a hotel, they have a place. But most importantly, because the UK property market has had a major, and I would say, amazing ride. It's slowed down now, but I've lived here for 25 years and I've seen properties values go up 10,000%, okay, in a 10-year period, literally. So many people who are buying in the right area, right postcode, while they were using it, they're also seeing eventually an appreciation. And they've turned around 10 years later and a flat they bought for 500,000, they've been able to sell off for 2 million. Fantastic. But you've got to know why, and you've got to be able to leave the money. You've got to know why you're buying the property, or why you're investing in stocks and shares, or why in Eurobonds, or why in whatever. And then you've got to watch the fees that go with the investing. So there are different platforms. There are different banks will offer you different financial products. Investment advisors will offer you different products. Look at the fees. Because the fees that there's no free lunch at the end of the day. You know, whether it's in a Eurobond or it's a treasury bill, the platform of which you're buying or of which you're making that investment, first of all, will charge you a fee for making the investment, and secondly, there are fees already embedded in the product. So 3 things: make sure the money you're investing, you can leave it for a while. It can ride the storm, because investing can be a rocky ride. It goes up, it comes down. During COVID, in the last 3 months, the UK, the global stock markets have taken a hit, 10-20%. At the moment, we're seeing a rally in the US, and I think in Nigeria, the hit has even been bigger, because when you add the fact that the stock market has gone down almost 60% in Nigeria, and you add a layer of the Naira devaluation, that's been a big hit. But it doesn't mean always that immediately there's a hit, you buy, you sell and run away. You've got to also understand why you're doing it, what's happening, read, listen to the news, understand what they call the macroeconomic, understand what are the global issues that are affecting your investment. So educate yourself, make sure the money you're putting aside is money you don't need immediately, and watch your fees. And those are 3 things I'd like to just stop with to help everyone absorb that. But that's a lesson that applies whether you are saving and investing for the short term or for the long term.
Thank you so much, Bimpe. Firstly, I'd like to apologize for my technical challenge there. Moving on, Bimpe, you do a lot of work, of course, with family and the African family and generational wealth. I think some of the things that some people need to know, understand that it's one thing to invest, it's one thing to actually invest through the right vehicle to protect your assets, giving it to the next generations or the people that you intend it to be for, but also to protect it, to make sure that you're not overpaying on taxes. Can you unpack that for a little bit and kind of just talk to us through what we need to look out for when we're building generational wealth? Because after all, I always say something, if you don't have the right vehicle to drive your investment, it's almost like putting water in a basket.
That's true, actually. And so yes, when I say I'm a wealth manager, and I say to clients, or people say wealth means I must have millions. First of all, like I said, from little drops of water, so the families now who perhaps their father or grandfather started a business, maybe something quite simple, but has grown, because obviously Nigeria, for example, or other parts of the continent, where we have the sheer volumes of people. So if you're selling or creating something that everyone wants, chances are you will make money from it. Now, when I talk about generational wealth, it could either be a family business, or it could be actually family assets, money, property that someone in the family, especially I would say generation 1, has accumulated. So Africa, unfortunately for us, we haven't yet seen many family businesses that have gone past the 3rd generation. And the statistics globally, not just Africa, are that only 10% of family businesses make it to generation 3. And the reason why they don't make it past generation 1 or 2 is no planning or bad planning. And so I'll talk to you very briefly about the kind of planning that you can make to have in place to ensure, at least to help the transfer of generational wealth. One of the things you need to be looking at if you're a company, for example, is, or even you own a basket of assets, how is it held? If you hold everything in your own sole name, obviously one day we're all going to go off to the great beyond. We're going to die. And when that happens, if everything is only in your sole name, because in some countries there are tax implications, even in Nigeria. I believe in Nigeria, assets that you held in your sole name will attract death duties about 10%. In the UK, they leave you about a small amount tax-free, but the bulk of the assets will attract 40% tax. In the US, different states have different tax rates. So one of the things I will say is holding assets in your sole name, whether as father or mother, is never a good idea. The other reason why it's never a good idea is that the only way of transferring those assets is by making a will. A will is a good piece of paper. It's a good way to write down what you desire. But I always tell people, that will, you write it, you put it in your drawer. It only comes to life when you're not there. When you're not there to ensure that your wishes are followed. And we're all human beings. So you might write a will and say, I want my son to get this, my daughter to get that. And I don't want that, or that daughter of mine who, left home 20 years ago, hasn't spoken to us to get anything. When you're not there, when you're not alive anymore, the people who are alive, the family members, the dependents can start fighting even over the will and end up in court for years and years and years. And at the end of the day, the lawyers get most of it just from their fees. So a will is one method of leaving assets, but it's not the only method, and especially for a family who may have assets internationally across different jurisdictions with tax issues, I wouldn't use a will. I'd use a trust. I'd use a family foundation. I won't go into too much legalese, but basically these are entities, these are structures where you are automatically in your lifetime creating a structure and saying to a professional trustee, who could be a company or individual, saying to that person, when I'm not here, this and this and this is what I want you to do. Same thing with the foundation. The foundation is like a company, or even using a Nigerian company. For many of you who are sitting in Nigeria, you could buy those assets in a Nigerian company, make your children the shareholders, or your, or whoever it is you think will become shareholders and owner of property later on. The company doesn't die. Therefore, the company doesn't pay death duties. And that's one lesson straight away. Use a company when you can. Use a trust when you can. And obviously, watch the cost of these structures. But these structures enable you to make sure that in your lifetime, you can put something, and actually you can communicate it around the family table. For those who have, I would say, a good family network, you can tell wife, or can tell husband, can tell children, this company owns assets ABC in these countries, and all of us we all own an equal share of the company. And there you have it. We call it lifetime estate planning. So you can do some lifetime planning, and by doing that, you're actually eliminating the fight that would happen when you're not there. The fight happens when there's been no communication. The fight happens when there's been poor leadership in the way the assets have been structured. So the work I do as a lawyer and I would say wealth manager is to advise families on different structures that will be tax efficient, but also that will enable the family to an extent, communicate with the responsible members of the other family who are alive, what can be done with the assets later on. I hope that's helpful. If you want to go over to
thank you so much, Bimpe. Thank you very much. We'll now move to the second part. We're going to take a second poll question. The Secretariat will flash it in front of your screens right now. The second poll question. And I read, have you ever used the services of a professional personal finance or wealth coach? Yes or no? And the second question is, which of this best describes your attitude to money or money personality type? First, the amasser, equating money to self-worth and power. The second is a hoarder, saving your money without even investing or spending. The third is the spender, buying and spending for pleasure, maybe in debt. The fourth is the money monk. Money is the root of all evil. And the fifth is the avoider, having no idea what's happening to your money. I will take about a minute to answer that. Okay. I think that we're going to collect the results now and I'll read it through. Okay, the first question says, have you ever used the services of a world professional personal finance coach? Oh, yes. 19% of people say yes. And then 82% say no. Interesting. Which of these options best describes your attitude towards money? So the amasser is 45%, the hoarder is 25%, the spender is 15%, the money monk, 1%, and the avoider is 16%. So, oh, wow. So we have an interesting poll there. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much for taking part in the poll again. Once again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Leadway Pensure and Carbon Tech Limited. We'll have a 30-second video so from one of our sponsors, Carbon Tech. Please enjoy. Thank you. Thank you very much, our wonderful sponsors. Thanks for all the support you give to us over the years. We truly are grateful. Please remember again to tweet or tag us on social media using the hashtags #WIMBIZ e-Roundtable and #WIMBIZ webinar. On LinkedIn, we are Women in Management, Business and Public Service. And on Twitter, we are at WIMBIZ. So do go on, tag along. At the end of this webinar, a poll will be put out for quick evaluation. Do stay till the end, and thereafter an evaluation link will be sent to you in a follow-up email. Please endeavor to complete it. We want to hear your opinion about this. Thank you very much. Now we are going to the audience participation. This is where you get to ask our speakers all the questions you've been itching to ask for the last 1 hour. Please keep them coming. We will endeavor to answer as many questions as we can. We have two fantastic people in the investment and money space in the financial industry. So let us take advantage of that. Okay. All right. So the first question is, please, can you recommend trusted financial agencies in Nigeria at a low income stage? I'd like to Arese to please answer that question, please.
Financial institutions that you can invest with. I personally like FBN, FBN Quest, Wealth.ng. I think a lot of banks now have investment firms. So GTB has Investment One. And obviously, because they have big commercial banks, these are good. This gives them good backing, so they're less likely to fall apart.
Okay.
But I like Wealth.ng as well. It's an app. It's an investment marketplace that you can have on your phone, and it makes it easy for you to sort of like partake in different financial instruments, even from a low-income perspective.
Okay, let me take those two questions together. Then again, Arese, for you, how much can I use as part of the starter for treasury investment, and what kind of investment can one put money into that's not too expensive to start with, but to grow and is somewhat risk-free?
Okay, so when people ask me that question, I like to explain that what you're investing in depends on why you are investing. So you have to articulate what your investment goals are and then match them to asset classes. And obviously, before you start investing, you need to speak to an investment advisor so that you can talk to them about what your financial obligations are, what your investment goals are, and they can help you match your asset classes. You talk to them about your risk profile. So for example, if you say, what can I invest in to grow my money? You could be investing, like I mentioned before, for your rent, or to buy a car by a certain time. And if the person that you're asking says, oh, put your money in an alternative investment, and you need that money in a year or in 6 months, it might pose a problem. So I think it's important for you to sit down, think about what your investment goals are first, speak to an investment advisor and talk them through what your risk profile is, and then they can match the different asset classes to whatever your goals and your financial obligations are.
All right, thank you very much. Bimpe, I'm one of the people that believe in diversifying your investments, and I believe that diversification is not just being local or having a local mentality in your investments. So most people tend to just invest in the country or they are in all their lives. But we have to also understand that with what is going on in some African countries, you know, like Kenya, like Nigeria, our currency has been devalued over the years. And what that means is that when you put your money in a local investment, and maybe that particular income is supposed to be for your children that want to study outside the country, sometimes it doesn't quite work out how you planned. Now, tell us, somebody who is, you know, understands investment in the global market, somewhere like in the UK and in this environment, and what kind of assets should one look into investing in the UK? And how about, is access a major problem? Is it a major hindrance? Could you talk on that, please?
Right, thanks. So I think it's, like you rightly pointed out, it's probably a good idea to have a diversified portfolio. Basically, it means don't put all your eggs in one basket, geographically as well as asset class. So when we talk about geographically, of course, it's good, whether you live in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, we all need to invest in our home countries, not just from a nationalistic point of view, but because, we have expenses, local expenses in local currency. So it's good to have, say, investment in stocks and shares in the local currency, because dividend payments will be in local currency, which if you're invested in the right companies, and even though the Nigerian stock market has taken a beating, there are still some companies doing pretty well and holding their own and still paying out very good dividends. So it's worthwhile still keeping some part of your investment put in your home country. Now, diversification is also important geographically, because as Africans, we're international, we travel, and you said, we actually also educate our children abroad. So let's look outside, outside your country. And I'm based in the UK, and here we have different styles. So whenever you look at your investing, if you're in the UK, and I'm sure the US has something similar, you always look at the first and foremost, the tax efficient investment. So there's something called an ISA, which is basically, an ISA is a pot of shares. So even just to rewind, you can either be investing in the shares in a particular company, like buying Apple stock or buying stock in Amazon or in Zoom. And that's what some people do if you have enough, a lot of money. The problem with only buying directly in a company is that if that company's fortunes fail and something happens, all the money you put in will go at the same time. So it's always a good idea to look at investing in what they call funds. And a fund really is where a fund manager has put a selection of different types of shares from different sectors, even gold, oil and gas, financial services, into a fund. And in the UK, we have the FTSE 100, which is a fund of 100 companies which are quoted, publicly quoted companies. And if you invest in a FTSE 100 product, your £1 is being spread across all those companies, which means that if some companies have a hard time and fail, or their shares go down or don't pay dividends, other companies will, for different reasons. So if you're investing in a fund, then the likelihood is that it's a better risk, that it balances out the risk. So the ones that go down will, the ones that go up will compensate for the ones that have gone down. So looking at investing, don't always go straight into shares, look at funds. And in funds, I talk about, they're tracker funds. There's certain funds that are set up to track a particular sector, whether it's the gold sector, oil and gas. They're funds that are what you call exchange traded funds. But again, they're basically wrapped up together and allows you to put your money and to spread it as far as possible. And it's in the same way when you're investing in funds, you have the funds that are tax efficient. So an ISA is where the government in the UK allows you to put away £20,000 every year tax-free. When I say tax-free, it's your money, you put it in there. But typically in this country, when you sell shares, you pay capital gains taxes. But if you put money in an ISA and you sell the ISA or it appreciates, you won't pay capital gains tax on it just for that 20,000. So always find out in your home country if there's any tax efficient way of saving. Your pension is also usually tax efficient, and I believe even in Nigeria, where now most companies are obliged to set up pensions for their employees, and your money is going into usually a tax efficient structure managed by a pension fund manager. Ask questions, even if you're paying into a pension that your company is running. Are selected, the pension fund manager selected by, check who they are, track them, read about them online. How well are they doing? And if you're in senior enough management, you should be able to say, well, maybe that PFM hasn't paid out or has been investing only in oil and gas, and oil and gas has gone down. We want a PFM that has a diversified portfolio. So wherever your money is going, whether it's under your control or not, try and make sure it's being invested in a diversified portfolio across various sectors. Now, the tools for investing will also sometimes determine how well you can control that. Nowadays, you can go online. I mean, first of all, yes, you can go to the bank, and most banks in Nigeria and even this country have an investment arm. But sometimes they will ask you to start off with a threshold, a minimum amount that's probably quite high. They might say, we want to have 100,000 naira or 250,000 naira, for you to actually open up any kind of investment account with us. Now, in the digital space, things have changed. In digital space now, you have a lot of funds, and of course you have to do your homework and go online and read about them. But a lot of funds that allow you to go onto a platform and invest probably with a very small amount of money. And in the UK, we have a few. And I thought it might be a good chance for me to plug the fact that my company here in the UK, W8, is actually setting up a platform called Wealth8. Wealth8 is a platform that will be launched this summer that will allow investors to come on and actually, for as little as £500, start your own portfolio. And the managed funds that will be available through Wealth8, because we're using fund managers here like BlackRock, who are very well known, who have integrity in the marketplace. But basically, you will go into that platform and be able to put your money, select based on your risk appetite, your profile, you ask some questions, and you'll see the choices, and you'll select which one fits your goal, just like Arese mentioned. So using an online platform also is a way of starting something very quickly, cheap and dirty, and you can do it in your living room. You don't have to go to the bank, and you fill some forms. Of course, there's KYC needed on who you are, but you can actually set up a portfolio, and that one can be for a pension, and you set up a standing order, direct debit from your account to drop into that regularly. So diversifying means also using different means, using the bank for treasury bills, for larger ticket investments, and using online portals for smaller ticket investments, which you and even your adult children, if you have them, can also start learning quite early. So if that's helpful.
Thank you so much.
I think he frozen. Hello?
Hello, yes, thank you. I think the video froze.
Can you hear me? Hello, yes. Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Okay,
if I can add quickly,
okay.
I mentioned Wealth8. If you go on to wealth8.com, please go on and register if you're interested in getting a lot of newsletters and also financial tips. Because the whole idea about financial education is also online. You can actually find portals like ours that will give you a lot of information in a very easy and easily digestible way about the different types of investments that are available both in the UK and globally.
Yes, I was going to allude to that actually, because I do know that in Nigeria right now, just to explain this properly to our audience, we believe that, diversification is not just investing in the stock market in your local country, also invest in the global market, invest in the stock market in Europe, invest in emerging markets in countries like China, in frontier markets, and also on the global market in the US, which has one of the biggest global markets in the world. So in Nigeria right now, I know that there's some companies that you can easily register with them and transfer Naira and begin to trade on foreign stocks and even mutual funds. And Bimpe has
I know that you also have your platform that the great thing about your platform is also you give advice, because a lot of people I talk to, they say, I don't understand what you mean by all the stocks, all those mutual funds, what are ETFs, what are commodities. It's also daunting. And that alone doesn't encourage them to invest. And we're telling people to go ahead and keep investing and stay invested. All right. So how can we just very quickly simplify all of this process for them? Is there a one-stop shop, or is there a couple of places they need to go to, or a couple of things they need to be aware of very quickly? Thank you, Bimpe.
Like I said, you find these days we're all living our lives online, so there's quite a bit of information that you can find. Usually, if you go on, I'm sure even in Nigeria, those who are, I believe, maybe I'm not wrong, but those who are offering online portals through which you can invest should at least be able to tell you, some information about what that particular investment product is and break it down for you. So that's one way. The portal that you're using, if it doesn't have some financial literacy or education part of it, even to also at the most sophisticated, you still need some information. If it doesn't, then I would say maybe it might not be the right one for you. But also, again, just read the press. Whether you're reading Business Day or the Financial Times and understanding what's happening in the world around you. It's important as adults for us to keep abreast of the news. I mean, the other day in the FT, there was an article that about the 100 companies globally that have done well in COVID. You need to know.
Yes,
if you're thinking of investing in stocks and shares, don't just think, oh, Apple, everybody carries a mobile phone. What's happened to Apple post-COVID? I mean, Apple has done well, funny enough, because we're all living lives on the phone more. So you don't realize that your everyday life actually feeds into the way the stock market is performing. So Zoom has done very well. Amazon has done amazingly well because we're all going online to shop. So the businesses
Facebook
that have
done well.
But the travel industry, if anybody is thinking of buying shares in British Airways or Air France or Kenya Airways or Virgin, or has shares in those companies have taken a beating. And in fact, what's happened now is that lots of companies in this country have frozen dividend payments. The banks are not paying dividends because they are suffering. So you need to really, I think you can't say you want to invest if you're someone who's, I don't want to use the word lazy, or someone who feels they're too busy to follow the market. But if you're busy, to be honest, then don't invest in shares directly. If you're busy, look for the right financial advisor, look for a online platform where you can buy into funds, because the fund manager has picked 50 funds and he's wrapped it up together and makes it easy for you. And you don't have to track each company. So if you're busy, you can still do it intelligently. So I think you just need to understand your own profile, your own fit, but it's important that you read the small print and watch the costs.
Fantastic. Let's move on slightly to a different asset class now. Let's talk slightly about real estate. I know both of you both love real estate, and you have a lot of information there. Arese, real quickly, what do you think about the real estate in Nigeria right now? We've talked about the paper asset, but real estate in Nigeria, do people still have funds to invest in real estate? Should they be looking at investing in real estate, or should they be looking at real estate investment trust, which is almost like an offshoot, like a stock market, I call it, of real estate, of the actual real estate? For those that can't afford real estate, they can buy into different rates. What do you think about the overall real estate market, especially in the frontier markets?
Obviously, like everywhere globally, in Nigeria, it has slowed down because people are thinking about if they have enough cash to survive post-COVID. So not as many people are looking at investing in real estate at the moment. But I know that speaking to a lot of the real estate professionals that I, work with, they've said that even if, sales have kind of slowed down, people are still making inquiries about, the different opportunities. So I think there's opportunities in Nigeria, maybe not to realize long-term, but something that people can be thinking about is how to look for distressed assets in Nigeria. Because now, if you think about it, a lot of people have either lost their jobs or their businesses are struggling and they need to be able to realize cash very quickly. So it means that they will be able to sell off whatever assets that they have at a way lower discount than they would have sold it before COVID. And for young people who are looking to climb the real estate ladder and they're thinking, oh my God, it's expensive. One of the things that I did when I was, in my 20s was help people sell their own real estate or rent out their own real estate and build up commission from those sales, where I didn't have to put any money down, but I could use the money from those from the sales that I made, the commission from the sales that I made, to put towards my own real estate investment. So you might want to think about things like that. Bimpe had talked about, looking at your expenses and cutting down your costs so that you can create cash in your budget. But I think it's also important for you to think about, what things can I do? What skill sets do I have, right, that I can leverage on to create another income that I can use, whatever income comes from that, to start saving and start investing, right? And then I wanted to talk about something else. I noticed that lots of people said that they hadn't worked with a wealth coach or a personal finance professional when they were making their investment decisions. I used to shy away from coaching for different things before, but one thing I realized about financial services, especially in Africa, is that financial institutions they know everything about the different asset classes, their pros and their cons, and they create all these products. But for the most part, it sounds like financial jargon to the average, Nigerian. So people can be really smart. They can work in oil and gas. They can work in entertainment, but they don't understand what you mean when you say stock markets, and you use all these terms like profitability and ROI. The importance of speaking to a wealth coach is not to help you manage your money. It is to give you the financial education and the clarity that you need to A, organize your money, B, do all the things that you need to do to prepare yourself before you go and speak to an investment advisor, so that nobody can waylay you. You know your onions before you're sitting in front of an investment advisor, and you know exactly what you're looking to get from that interaction. So working with a wealth coach gives you that clarity. And I'm doing a challenge, a small money 30-day challenge. So for those of you who have said that you don't really understand the financial jargon, I'm sending financial tasks, one financial task to your email every day that basically breaks down the concept of money and helps us to basically fix our finances or organize our finances. You'll get small money toolkits that help you with budgeting, debt repayment, and all of that. So yeah, if you're interested,
thank you so much.
Instagram.
Thank you so much, Arese. You mentioned something, distressed. Before I unpack that real quickly, I'd just like to recap quickly some of what our speakers have said. So what we're saying here is that we are encouraging you to invest and stay invest. And we also reminding you that investment doesn't have to be daunting. The information all over the place. Bimpe mentioned that most banks, they have an investment arm. You can give them a call. You can walk into any of those investment arms of the banks and talk to their asset management. Explain to them that you like to invest in alternative investment. They have mutual funds, they have local stocks, and so on. So that's one way to start to invest. Another way is that there are quite a few platforms in Nigeria right now. Without particularly recommending any, I know of Invest Bamboo, Invest, I know of I think Trove. Some of them, and they're a lot more if you do your research. Those ones, they allow you access stocks on the global market. So buying those stocks on the local market and also buying stocks on the global market, it protects your investments against inflation. It protects your investments against currency depreciation, because now you're having best of both worlds. All right. And then one of the other things that Bimpe also said is that she has a platform, World 8, a platform that gives you a lot of information, especially about mutual funds, and taking you, literally hand-holding you. And they also have speakers that they engage on a weekly basis to break down concepts for you. Arese also has a 30-day challenge she's going through, and also join all those platforms. There's so much information out there. There's absolutely no excuse why we cannot invest and stay invested. Now, Arese last mentioned distress sales. Now we're in real estate, moving on to real estate now. Distress sales is definitely something you should be looking at this moment. With what has happened post-COVID, realtors out there, property companies, developers out there, they're looking to sell their property. So this is a time for you to negotiate. Don't be in a hurry. Make sure you do all your due diligence before you go into a property. I also, I focus on distress sales in the United States. Okay, so I focus on foreclosures, and you'll be shocked how much you can get. You can have more properties for as low as $10,000, $20,000, of course, with terms and conditions, but there are tons of opportunities out there. So just quickly to Bimpe, what's the real estate market in UK like? Can foreigners buy properties? And also somebody had the question for you. When you're done with the real estate question, also I want you to answer. Somebody's asking, can we have both a trust and a will? And you mentioned about buying through a company. Can you unpack that a little bit, please?
Right. Okay. So in the UK, the property market has, been one of the, I would say, key pillars of the economy here. So I almost will tell you that the UK has been, the property market has been one area where foreigners for a long time, up until recently, could keep the upside of their investment. So you bought a property here. If you bought it through a company that was not a UK company, like I said, companies don't die. On your death, there will be no inheritance tax levied on the property. And inheritance tax is a tax that's payable by the beneficiaries of the estate. So when you've left a property to your family and they want to take it over and inherit it, the government here in this country and most countries will say you must pay death duties. But if you bought it through a company, and this law changed a few years ago, you could actually avoid paying inheritance tax. If you're a foreigner, you didn't pay capital gains tax either. And in fact, also you didn't pay tax on the rental income. Unfortunately, that changed 2015, 2017. UK government decided they wanted to make more money from the real estate market and not leave all the money in the hands of foreigners. So they removed all of those benefits I've just mentioned. But the property market is still a good place. So the point is, if you buy a property, whether you buy it in a company or not, tax will be levied on it on death. And it doesn't matter whether you used a company. The UK law now says the taxman can look beyond the company into the hands of the shareholders and levy tax on the shareholders of the company. And that changed in 2015. And that made property a bit less interesting. And same with capital gains tax. They changed the law and said from 2015 onwards, you had to pay capital gains tax when you sell the property. But like I said, the UK attracts foreigners for many reasons. Education is one. As we know, Nigerians are, I would say, a net exporter, a next user of UK education. And many, many families who bring their children here to school. When child 1 comes, then child 2, child 3, there's half term, the holidays don't match, mom is here or dad is here, a property makes sense. So property has always been something we love as Africans, and I think most people worldwide love to own real estate. And in this country, up until now, it's still appreciating. It's appreciating much slower than before. Brexit also put another layer of doubt on the market. So the market sort of really slowed down and cooled off. But if you're buying in what we call prime central London, which is really anywhere that's on the circle line on the tube map, chances are if you buy and you hold, the market will be good to you. Even during COVID, we're still seeing a heightened interest in property because the market here is driven not just by the British, it's driven by the Asians who come, the Middle Eastern, Saudi families, by the Chinese, the Singaporeans, everybody comes here and buys property, and therefore there's never enough. The UK is an island, don't forget. So there's a finite amount of land on which they can build houses. And London too has a limited amount of space, just like Lagos. And so property in London tends to appreciate. So it's a good buy. But I mean, at the moment, prices have slowed down. You're in a better place to negotiate than you would have been a few years ago. And so it's a good time to step your toe into the property market in the UK. Definitely.
Okay,
now,
fantastic.
The other question, just to quickly pick up the question. Okay. You can have a trust, you can have a will. In fact, you can have, I don't want to make it a legal class because you will all go to sleep. But you can have a trust in your will. A trust basically is something you use when the members of the family who are going to inherit the estate are minors. That's usually why a trust is recommended. So you have children who are less than 18 or 21. You then will appoint a trustee who may be a family member to hold the assets if you pass on before they achieve majority age. And that's where we put it, we can make it a will trust. But a trust also is used where you have diverse assets in different countries and your family are spread out all over the world. So I'll stop there. I don't want to make, whoever is asking, by all means, contact me, because it can send you to sleep unless you're really interested in that topic. But that's
fantastic. And just so to mention as well, whoever asked that question, a lot of these banks don't just offer asset management; they also have trustees, trusteeship companies as well. So you can walk into any of them or just call them up, and they'll be able to tell you the difference between wills and trust, what you need, and how you can basically set up your good estate planning. So just to add to that, a quick question again for you, Bimpe, please, if you already have funds overseas in your name in the bank, do you advise it be moved to the company? This may not be possible if the person is not a resident in that country. How do you invest such cash?
Well, that's very straightforward. I mean, to be honest, if you have a bank account in your personal name and it has cash in it and you want it to become owned by a company that may be a family-owned company, register the company, whether it's in the UK or Jersey or wherever it is, and you go to the same bank and say, right, I'm opening an account in the bank in the company name, and all that money that's sitting in my name or part of it, I want to put it under the company and invest it through the company. And usually you will say estate planning could be a good reason because that company shareholders could be your family members. So it's very easy. Register the company, go to the bank, open an account in the company name and move the funds across into the company bank account. And that's easy done whether or not you're resident in the UK. It's not a criteria to be resident here to have a bank account here, as you know.
Fantastic. Arese, I have this one for you. How do you refuse to help relatives and family members without sounding selfish? This is a problem of culture and religious belief.
In fact, I'm sure that person came from my Instagram page because I posted something recently about black tax. So in my book, there's a character called Lara, and she's an oil and gas professional. She has a decent salary. She has a really good salary, and she's single. She doesn't have any kids, but every single month she feels the huge financial burden because she's burdened with looking after the financial obligations of all her family members. Her mother's rent. Her mother is a widower, so her mother's rent, her siblings' school fees, things like that. And that character was important to the youth to talk about black tax because it's something that's very prevalent in Africa, where you are the most successful one in the family, and everybody comes to you when they have problem. As soon as your salary hits your account, they are calling from the village that mama is sick, or your sibling needs something for school and things like that. So, but there's a point at which it becomes, in my opinion, financial abuse, where people feel so much pressure to look after their families, and forget that they need to look after their own financial future first. So I'm not saying don't give to your family members, but I'm saying that, do things to protect yourself, because if you keep helping people, and even if you're not spending on bags and shoes, you can also you're doing something noble. You're looking after your family, and we're from Africa. You want to be a good person, but you can easily become a revolving door for your money in the same way that a lady who is spending all her money on shoes and bags is, right? Because you have to ask yourself, if I lost my job, if my business failed, can the people I've been looking after with my salary or my income all these years look after me? So it's about finding a balance. I give some tips in my book, which is like, number one, maybe set a revolving fund, decide how much you can afford to give towards helping family, maybe every year or every month. So let's say you have a revolving fund of 1 million naira or 100,000 naira, and you say to them, listen, this is going to be for all of us. We're going to pass it around, and we're going to hold each other accountable, right? So if Uche comes and says she wants to borrow money because she needs to buy machines for her business, but she'll bring it back in 90 days, right? Soji can make sure that Uche pays back that money because he wants to use it to start a business himself or to invest in something else himself, right? So one way of teaching them how to fish is by creating a revolving fund. And then for yourself, just understanding that you have to put your own mask on first before you help other people. Otherwise, you end up, in problems, and you guys will end up in problems together. So maybe set a budget, a limit on how much you spend every month towards helping family members, and saying, listen, this is the criteria for people to touch this money. So if they call me and it fits any of this criteria, like, is it an emergency? Is it a medical emergency? How much can I afford to put towards this that will not mean I can't pay my rent next month, or I can't pay my child's school fees, right? So it's little things like that. It's about setting boundaries and finding that balance between being a good person who wants to make sacrifices for their family, but also putting your financial future first to make sure that you're protected, so that you can you can sustain all the time.
Okay, thank you so much, Arese. Just a quick one as well. I'm going to put these two questions together. The one says that, can you highlight the difference between the different asset classes for long-term and the short-term? And also, can you recommend some good platforms for young students to start investing? I'm sure that we mentioned one or two on this, but can you just, in maybe 30 seconds, summarize that?
In 30 seconds, okay, so basically
this particular person, they mentioned you, and I would like to, and I want the audience to know that we're reading all the questions, but sometimes you just have to put 2-3 questions together and summarize it and give it to the audience. But this particular person wants a question answered. She said, Ms. Arese, can you kindly highlight the different asset classes for long-term and short-term? And what are some good platforms for young students to start investing?
Okay, so an example of a short-term investment would be treasury bills, right?
Okay.
You put it in for 90 days, and then you get a return on your investment. In Nigeria, the rates are low now. I saw somebody mentioning something about, are we going to talk about how volatile the investment portfolios are in Nigeria now, when treasury bills are now 2% when they used to be 14%? But the thing is that markets change. Asset classes have seasons. So when the government needs more money and they want to borrow aggressively, then the price of what they're willing to pay for it also increases, right? So when it was 14%, we were enjoying, but now it has come back to single digits. And if you check it, it's probably comparable to what pertains abroad when they buy treasury bills. Nobody around the world, nobody's treasury bills are 14% or 16%, right? So that was just a season. So treasury bills are an example of short-term, an asset class you can use in the short term, right? That is fairly safe because you're borrowing money to the government. Long-term investments are things like stocks. Your stock portfolio, you want to keep it, you want to build it over a period of 10 years or 20 years. Alternative investments like investing in other people's businesses. Also a long-term investment, because if you're a business person, you know that it takes a long time before you start to realize real profits. So if you are putting money in someone else's business, it's a long-term investment because you have to give it time to realize profits.
Okay. All right, Bimpe, I have a couple of questions for you. I'm putting it together as well. Somebody's asking, what is the minimum amount to invest in the UK? You did answer that. She said £500 you can start. Somebody also said, Bimpe, since 61% of the audience has only one source of income, what would you recommend as a simple additional source of income? And while you're unpacking that, also please answer this trust question. In the case of a trust provided by a company, the would-be executors of the trust does that mean the ultimate power sits with them over the management and of what one has left behind? Where is the safeguard against foul play by the company managing the trust, please? I think this is a question in the cases where people are actually going towards corporate trusteeship.
Yep. Okay, let me start with the UK, with the question about the minimum amount. There isn't a minimum amount. I mean, there are different platforms you can go to. So most of the online platforms would start at £500. The one we are setting up with wealth-8.com. Someone sent me a text to please mention that. It's wealth-8.com. The actual investment tool will be ready probably in late August, and it's an FCA regulated tool. So, here everything is super regulated and no messing about. So, but £500 tends to be the minimum. Now, one thing I will say, if you have one single source of income, your job, one mistake you shouldn't make is just saying, I have a savings account and I'm going to put X amount of the cash I'm earning into another savings account, a current account. I'm going to move money into a savings account every month. The problem with leaving the money in cash is that it's not growing. First of all, in the UK, as you know, on a simple savings account, you don't earn any interest. So that's one thing. And then obviously inflation catches up with that money, and therefore the money is sort of melting before your eyes, even worse in Nigeria, which is why most wealth coaches or wealth planners will always point to the idea of having an investment portfolio in shares, in funds, in treasury bills, whatever it is that fits that person's goal, time horizon, and their pocket. So the fact that you have one source of income doesn't mean you can't have 3 diverse platforms of savings. It's really up to you how much you have to put aside every month, and picking the right one for you based on what your length of time for savings is. Retirement is important. I can't overstress the need for a pension. And a pension is money, you put it away, you lock it away, you forget about it. And even if you're age 25, start your pension today. There's something we haven't mentioned. It is a secret of compound interest. It's not a secret, but it's what makes money grow. So compound interest is when you say, for example, you invest £100 and they tell you it's 4%. And so at the end of the month, you're getting £4 every month. Now, what a lot of people do is take that £4 and blow it. Imagine you took that £4 and you added it again to the total. Okay, and you keep adding it, and that's what they call compound interest. And there are lots of different scenarios and data I've read where if over 20 years you put £100 a month away and compound interested it continuously, your money will be worth over $1 million in about 25 years because of the so compound interest means the interest from that you gain from that investment or that portfolio. Don't look at it as money that you can spend, reinvest it, and that's where compound interest can play a big part. In that tiny bit of money, it helps it grow even better. Okay, so that's I think that hopefully that answers you on the idea of how much you can invest and how. On the issue of using corporate trustees, I think the right now the world is global. There are lots of corporate trustees that show up in Nigeria, offshore, Jersey, Isle of Man, Mauritius, Cayman, Nigeria also. I always use a corporate trustee that is based in a country where the law is very rigorous. So in most countries, trustees are regulated by the equivalent of the financial services industry. So in Nigeria, for example, trustees should be regulated by SEC. So that if your trustee messes up under the laws, they can be jailed, they can be, they can be banned for life from holding other position as a trustee. And if they know that that is over their heads, the likelihood of them being fraudulent is less. They may be negligent, they may make mistakes, for which case they're usually insured. So insurance should step in where there's negligence or mistakes. But pure and simple fraud in a country where in this country, the FCA will jail you, full stop. And if you're a director of a company, even if you aren't in the forefront of the fraud that happened, you will be penalized very seriously. Now, talking about trustees, yes, there's always a danger that when the person sets a trust up, in his lifetime, he's alive to see how the assets are working. He's given the trustees power to hold the assets, to manage the asset. That's what a trust is. You're giving a third party the legal ownership of an asset and telling him to use it but to the benefit, the income should be given to somebody else. He keeps the capital. So what you then have to do is make sure wherever your trust is registered is a country where the laws are rigorous. And that's why the offshore centers like Jersey or Mauritius, imagine that those countries, all of their economy is built on providing trust services. So if one bad egg happens, it's going to taint the whole industry. And
Absolutely.
therefore, they don't allow you to put a foot wrong, you'll be closed down. So that's where in choosing and selecting, and that's the work I do in helping clients set up structures. Sometimes the Nigerian trustees...
But Bimpe, sorry to interrupt you, Bimpe. A lot of this, the offshore trusts you're mentioning, a lot of them come with exorbitant fees. You're talking of setup fees, annual fees to manage. Is it really cost effective to go down that route? And what are the benefits, if any? Because they do charge quite a tremendous amount of fees.
Yes, you're right. And so you see, even until Nigeria's, our trust laws are very old. I don't want to even go even further. Our trust laws we use right now are very, very old. We haven't actually updated them. I know there's a bill in the House that's been there for the last 10 years. They haven't passed it yet. So at the moment, the trust laws in Nigeria mean that if anybody messes up, unless they are attached to a bank whose credibility is also at risk, the chances are you're kind of swimming in a slightly higher risk environment. But the point is, at the end of the day, you need to set up a trust, look at the costs, but it depends on what assets the trustees are holding. If they're holding assets of a property in London worth 5 million and a portfolio in a UBS worth another 2 or 3 million, if you're asked to pay $5,000 a year over 20 years, well, it's $100,000, which compared to the assets you're protecting, possibly, you have to sort of weigh, it's a commercial decision to make. What it is, what have you got to lose, or what are you protecting by spending that kind of money? But that's part of the discussion I have. And yes, sometimes a domestic trustee is just as good for domestic assets. And I work with a couple of very credible domestic trust houses as well in Nigeria.
All right, thank you for that, Bimpe. Arese, I have this one for you. According to the survey, we see that our major fear is whether an investment is safe. I see a lot of entrepreneurs asking for investment on Instagram. What are the right questions to ask these entrepreneurs to safeguard my investment? And also, I want you to also answer this question. It says, good afternoon, ladies. I would like to get your opinion on investing with money lending companies. That's number 2. And just to add one more, while you're looking at that, also talk about the crowdfunding, because a lot of the agricultural investments are coming up these days. Are they safe? Should people look towards investing in those kind of products? What are the regulations that are in place to protect people? Thank you.
So as Bimpe said, we're in a developing country. I don't think we're allowed to say third world country anymore. We're in a developing country. So our markets are regulated, but not as regulated, probably not as regulated as they are in the UK. So there are obviously a lot of scams, but then there are also legitimate companies who are trying to do good work. But then there's also the risk of the companies failing, right? Because if you're a business owner yourself, you understand what the risks are of doing business in Nigeria. So I think the first thing in terms of thinking about whether your investment is safe or not is, first of all, understanding what your risk profile is, right? So, and then asking questions around who regulates them. Does SEC regulate them? Do they have, what do they invest your money in? Asking the right questions around what they're investing in. If it's a product, is it equity-based? Is it money market-based, right? Asking and finding out what their history is. Like, how long have they been in business for? Is this a new idea? Who are the promoters of this business? Now, I find it difficult to talk about the safety of investments because there are different things that can happen. So somebody can be doing a financial institution can be doing fantastic business for 30 years and 1 or 2 things will happen and basically your money is gone because the business failed. I can speak to this because I invested in my family's business. It was in business for 30 years. My dad was on the Nigerian Stock Exchange Council, and in 2016, the company basically had issues, and a business that had basically been paying my fees and whatever for 30 years was now facing litigation, and the assets in the business were stuck. So it's important for you to understand that things can happen. So you need to ask questions and know the level of risk that you're willing to take with the financial institution. What am I investing in? Does the return make sense, right? So if somebody is promising you a 200% return, you need to ask yourself, what business do they do that can you do in Nigeria that will give you a 200% return without risking your capital? How long can you put your money in there for? And also understanding the importance of diversifying your risk via your institutional risk, right? We talk a lot about spreading the risk across asset classes, but we don't talk enough about diversifying our risks across institutions, right? So across institutions and across geography, so that if something happens to one, all my money is not in one institution, it's spread around. So you have to do your own due diligence. You have to understand what your own risk profile is, because as fantastic as all these new apps are and everything, they're great today, but I don't know. I don't have a fortune teller. They might not be great in 10 years, and you have to bear that risk in mind, right? But instead of saying, oh, I'm not going to invest, you have to take calculated risks and ask yourself, how many, what are they investing the money in? Who is this financial institution? Are they insured? Where can I go and get my money if anything happens? Can I get my money if anything happens?
All right. Thank you very much, Arese. Bimpe, this is for you. Bimpe, can you please talk more about foundations and how they can be used to manage wealth? And maybe you want to give them a way of contacting you as well, because we're getting a lot of questions around trust and foundation and so on. And while you're answering that question, can you also, somebody's asking whether insurance is a means of investment. Thank you.
Okay, well, let me start from the insurance bit, because that's it's quite an innovative way of investing, and it's a particular product called an insurance wrapper. So I'm not even here. We're very careful about the fact that I'm not regulated to advise you on insurance wrappers, but they exist. And especially, I don't think they exist in Nigeria in the same way. But basically, what the essence of an insurance wrapper is that it's life insurance, but it's a term policy. So it's not the kind of policy that you only pays out on death. Usually you take it out and it's usually to like age 90 or something if you're alive then, but you can decide to redeem it earlier. So it's a way of saving. And then the insurance house that's actually created the structure will give you some interest payments on it, usually high interest because the premiums are very high. So the two options are, it could pay out on death, obviously to family members that you've actually nominated to receive the benefit of the insurance premium, or it's a way of saving money and you can actually decide to, I think after your age 50 or 55 or something, you have the option of actually collecting your, taking up the capital and some of the interest out of and shutting down the portfolio. So insurance wrappers, if you have any relationship with any of the foreign private banks, they can tell you more about it. And usually they're done out of either Singapore or Bermuda, but they exist. But they're quite high in value and they're very expensive. That's the only ones that I know of. Typically, insurance is just insurance, and the insurance company is the one that gets your premiums. And if you don't, if you don't cash it in, that's the end. Now on trust and foundations, very quickly. A foundation is a company. Now, foundations were, I would say, established probably about 30 years ago when, in the civil law countries, trusts are a common law, English law, solution to holding assets for the set law. The person who owns the asset says, "You, corporate trustee, hold my assets, and I want to give the instructions in my lifetime to what happens when I'm no longer there, or even I can tell you that when I hit age 70." You should start giving me some of the money back when I'm no longer working. So a trust is not only for use after death. And also, because you've given the money to somebody else, you're not taxed on those assets because they no longer belong to your estate. On death, and even if the trust sells assets, if it's in a jurisdiction that doesn't pay tax, you won't pay tax. So it's a tax planning vehicle. That's what a trust is, but also an estate planning vehicle. Foundations are similar, but with a trust, like the person who asked the question is right, you no longer retain control. So the trustees, whether they're corporate trustees or individuals, they own the asset. And they really, apart from your letter of wishes, which is a document that you say, well, I would like the house to be sold or never to be sold, or I'd like my children to get X amount once they hit age 25. That's your letter of wishes. Once you're not there, a trustee can decide that it's not in the interest of the beneficiaries to sell the house because the market is bad. A trustee can decide that those 3 children are drug addicts and we give them the money, they're going to die of overdose. And therefore, they're not going to give them. I'm just giving you, these are real life cases that have happened. So a trustee actually holds the ultimate power. Many families, especially when the first generation who set the trust up, when the second generation come in and the father's trustee person says, you can't sell the house now because of X, Y, Z. And you're like, are you kidding me? But this is my father's money, or it's left to I'm the beneficiary. So a foundation is a blend. A foundation is a company, and that company holds the same assets. That company has, instead of a directors, it has a foundation council, and they hold and manage the assets. The difference is that the family members can sit on the council alongside the foreign trust company. So Chief X can set up a foundation. It's a private foundation, not for philanthropy. Although philanthropy could be one of the things that has all the objectives. You could say 1% of the family's wealth every year should be used for philanthropy. So it's a company, it has a, like remember now, it's a charter, and on the board, instead of just having the trustees like you have in the trust, you have a blend of trustee and family member, and therefore the trustees are inviting and have to listen to the beneficiaries because they're on the council. So I won't say more, it's just a foundation gives more control over the assets by the families who are the beneficiaries than a trust. That helps.
Thank you very much. Arese, this is your final question. Quickly, do you think cryptocurrency is a good investment vehicle? And what's your view on network marketing as an investment platform?
So this is the thing about cryptocurrency for me. A is an alternative investment, right? And we're basically taking a bet on a future outcome, which is that cryptocurrency will become more widely used and there'll be a market for it and it'll be, more regulated and all of that. But the reality is we don't know, right? So if I invest in cryptocurrency, I understand that it means that I'm investing a part of my money that I can afford to forget about, right? So the thing with risk is that I find that in Nigeria, we always look at the upside. So when someone says Bitcoin is going to give you 200% return in 6 months, my friend made 5 million naira in 1 week, right? Like, so go into it. I know people that made money from it. We don't really look at the upside, but you also need to evaluate the downside when you're looking at an investment, which is I can invest 5 million in this and my money will go away. There are lots of people who have lost money from Bitcoin, but there are also a lot of people who have made it. But this is the thing that I have to say to millennials or anyone even, is I find that most people, when they come and start talking about investments, they start with Bitcoin. They want to invest in the thing that is the fad and the thing that will double their money like immediately. The thing that puts people in trouble is always greed and impatience. Investing is not magic. Before you start asking about Bitcoin, ask yourself if you have a savings account. Have you invested in land? Have you bought real estate? Have you tested out the stock market? Because the stock market might be high risk, but it's also more regulated than things like alternative investments like Bitcoin and the other like cryptocurrencies. So understand what your risk appetite is. If you can afford, when you're evaluating whether you should make that investment decision or not, you should really ask yourself, am I comfortable losing this money? Nobody likes to lose money, but in evaluating risk, you have to ask yourself, is the possibility of losing this money worth the return that it can possibly give me, right? So you need to really look at that. Was there a second question? After that?
No, that's it. That's it. Thank you very much. And lastly, the last question will go to Bimpe. What is your view, in just about a minute or so, what is your view on investing locally versus in FX?
That's not fair because I live in London. So, but at the end, what I will say, I'll be very honest, is it's unfortunate that the naira and I think most of the domestic currencies in Africa are still sort of vulnerable to whether political risk or commodities. So, naira, oil and gas, oil prices fall, everything scatters. And that's a problem. So really, whether or not I live in the UK, even sitting in Nigeria, knowing that we're international citizens, we want to travel, we want to have children abroad, we should always think of having a portfolio, starting a portfolio offshore that is in a sound, stable market, in a currency that has a strong government policies around it to always prop it up. And the last thing I would like to say also, just as Arese said, whether you're investing on an online portal or investing in T-bills or investing in as an angel investor, because we haven't mentioned that, I think that's also an area, always realize that your money, you could lose your money, and not necessarily because of anybody doing anything wrong. You could lose money, part or a substantial part, because of the vagaries of the stock market, because of the world, pandemics, things happen that you can't control. So like you said, also just assess your risk appetite and know how much you're willing to lose when you walk into an investment. At what point will you say, give me my money, liquidate it, and let me take what's left and move on? Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. How can, because they have so many questions, how can the audience get to you? Do you want to leave your contact details once more?
Yes,
maybe your Instagram
yes.
or your website? Yeah.
Bimpe at wealth-8.com. And same, it's the Instagram handle also is wealth-8. You can actually DM me through that. Bimpe at wealth-8.com. Thank you.
Okay, and you, Arese, how can they contact you?
You can follow me on Instagram, Smart Money Arese, or my website, smartmoneyafrica.org.
Well, thank you so much. As you've heard, investing doesn't have to be daunting. You simply need to set goals, get financial education, and perhaps start small, because after all, most of your learning will be through practice and engagement. When you miss the mark, which you certainly will at some point, you will evaluate your decisions and get over the disappointment very quickly. Note that opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. From my experience, your psychological well-being is extremely important when making key financial decisions. In other words, do not make a temporary decision in a permanent situation. If you, however, have always been on the sideline of investments, we give you tons of information, and maybe it's time to begin to jump in and get your feet wet a little. So we're going to take the final poll. All right, we're taking the final poll now. Please be patient. Take the poll and for a quick evaluation, please. Secretary will put it up soon. Is this your first time participating in a WIMBIZ e-Roundtable? Yes or no? Some other. Okay, I think that I think the poll should be done now. Okay, I'd like to thank you all for completing the evaluation poll, and do note that an evaluation link will be sent to you all in a follow-up email. Please endeavor to complete it. We'll want to hear your opinion about this webinar. We definitely want your feedback. So once again, we'd like to thank all our sponsors, Carbon Tech Limited and Leadway Pension. Thank you so much for sponsoring us, and all our sponsors. We thank you so much. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this session as much as I have. You must agree with me. It has been a very informative and educative session. We look forward to having you in another e-Roundtable of WIMBIZ next month. Would like to say special thank you to our speakers, Arese, Ugwu, and Bimpe Nkontchou. Thank you for bringing the wealth of knowledge to this round table. To WIMBIZ, thank you so much for providing such an engaging platform. And to the audience, thank you so much for participating. The video will be available on the WIMBIZ YouTube channel, so endeavor to watch it again and share it with others. Until next time, it has been a humble pleasure of mine to have been your moderator. My name is Motunrayo Ade-Famoti. Please keep safe, take care of yourself and each other. Thank you.
Thank you.